What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So we're finally back home. Gonna make some content for the car, and the first thing we have to do is we have to take care of this water pump. If I'm being honest, when doing maintenance things, they're not really my most favorite thing to do. So it's not like that I don't like doing maintenance things, it's that I'm very particular, because if I feel like I mess up on one thing, I feel like it's gonna mess up the whole thing. And I don't like messing up on things because it's my baby. It's my baby. So we're gonna be taking care of that today, and if you guys watched my previous video, there was like a weird sloshing sound in the engine bay. I'll include a clip right here, so if you guys are experiencing this noise, there's a good chance that it is your water pump going out. So like the ticking sound, that's normal. It's just that little weird noise that's coming from this area. I double checked everything in the engine and everything looks fine, but it's just that weird noise. So after that video was posted, a lot of you were like, yeah, dude, just replace your water pump, that noise should go away, and you should be good to go. So I pretty much have all the materials needed. I have the water pump in here. I got some Loctite, and I got the coolant, no spill radiator filling funnel kit. And of course, you gotta get some coolant. So I've been watching a lot of videos, I've been reading a lot of tutorials on how to do this, and I think it doesn't look like a super difficult job, but it also doesn't look super easy. So the first thing that you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to jack up the car, because we're gonna need to drain out all the coolant that's currently in the car already. And once you have the car jacked up, you're gonna have to remove everything from the front part of the engine. So this obviously has to go. This piece is gonna have to go. Everything from the front part of the engine bay is pretty much going to be removed so you can access the water pump. So I suggest always grabbing some gloves, and make sure you have some like eye protection. You always want to use protection. It could be sunglasses, it could be glasses, anything that can cover your eyes. Make sure you have some protection. But let me go ahead and show you guys exactly what we're taking off and what you're going to need to remove all this stuff. So this is gonna be a 10mm bolt that you're gonna take off right here, and then this one is just like a poppet screw that is similar to like the covers that's over here. The next part is actually gonna involve you going underneath the car to remove all of the covers so that we can drain all of the coolant from the radiator. And as you all know, Lexus is very infamous, so for all these covers that you have to remove, to do some basic maintenance stuff. So just to give you guys a brief overview, there is a door right here that leads to where the oil filter will be. I lost my door. I think it came off when I was driving, because when I went to do an oil change one day, the door was gone. As you all know, the radiator is in this area, like the front of the car. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this piece first. From what it looks like, there's a couple of screws here, and then there's a couple on that side. So let me go ahead and take this off, and then I'll let you guys know exactly what you're gonna use to take off and what you're gonna need to remove. It is about 15 screws. I lost a few of them, so you guys are probably gonna have to remove more just on the cover itself. So the majority of 2IS owners should have this cover still underneath your car. You're gonna have to remove 5 in the front of the car, and then there's 2, one right here and one right here that you will have to remove. And then as you go along, you will see a bunch of screws. So there was 4 on this side. I believe there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 right in the middle, and then there's gonna be 4 on the opposite side as well. So that cover will allow you to get to the radiator and the bottom part of the radiator, so you can drain all of your coolant. As you can see now, everything is pretty open. The coolant drain thing is right here. So you're gonna wanna, not now, because there is no like drain thing. When you are ready to drain your coolant, you're gonna have to turn that loose, so counterclockwise. But I'll explain that later, but I want to show you guys how it looks like. So I haven't even opened the water pump box yet, so I don't even know if the water pump is in here or if it's the correct part. So before I drain my coolant and uninstall anything, let me open this up to make sure that I have the correct part. So you do have a gasket, good sign, and you have 2 O-rings. So these are 2 O-rings that you are going to have to replace. Then you have the water pump itself. In the write-up that I saw, they recommended getting a 3/8 tube so that you can connect to the drain plug, and it can, like, you know, seamlessly drop into the coolant catch bin. I decided not to get it, so I'm assuming that it's going to splatter all over the place, but I do have cardboard boxes so that in case it does start to splatter everywhere, it won't get on the floor. And another thing I do want to mention before we drain the coolant, the car does need like 1.9 gallons of coolant, which is essentially 2 gallons. So you want to make sure that your bin or your catch bin, whatever, can hold 2 gallons. The normal oil ones, like the small like circle ones, will not work. So you want to make sure that you have one that is bigger than that. So I just want to let you guys know beforehand. So this part is probably gonna take a while because similar to oil, it's just gonna drain. And since the hole, pause, is not that big, it's probably gonna take a while. So you could probably just sit down, go on YouTube, watch some of the old videos and just catch up. And I think the reason why people say get the tube to connect to the drain is so it doesn't splatter all over the place. I think it's fine if you don't have it, but if you do have it, it is a luxury to have. I just don't know if paying however much it was for the tube is worth it. I'll keep you guys updated when the coolant is done draining. So now that the coolant is pretty much at a drip, you can close the drain plug. You're pretty much just gonna turn it clockwise. I'm gonna leave the drain pan underneath the car because there's a good chance when we remove the water pump, some coolant might end up dripping on the floor anyway. So that's what I'm gonna do. You guys should probably do the same thing. If not, and you don't care about your floor, then you can remove it. But now, we're gonna go ahead and start getting into this thing right here. In order to get to the actual water pump, there are a few hoses that we will have to remove, and that involves this whole thing right here. So this piece right here is what we are going to be taking out. So there's 2 covers in this whole area that you are gonna remove. One is gonna be this one, and then the other one is gonna be this guy. All right, so I was able to remove this cover right here. This one's being a pain in the butt, so I'll get to that one a little bit later. So we're gonna have to take off the serpentine belt inside the car. You guys are gonna have to loosen the 4 bolts that are connected to the water pump pulley, which is this one. There's 4 bolts around it. There are gonna be a 12 millimeter. The reason why we're gonna do this before taking off the belt is because the belt is essentially holding everything together. If you take off the belt and you try to do it after, it's just gonna move around in place and it's not gonna be as easy. So that took longer than I thought, but like I said, you're gonna have to loosen up these 4 bolts. Don't necessarily have to remove them just yet, but now we're gonna remove the whole serpentine belt. You're gonna put a bolt on this tensioner pulley, pull it towards the passenger side of the car, and then the belt should be able to come loose and you should be able to take it off all of the pulleys. So we're gonna keep going. After you take off the belts, you're gonna have to take off all of the hoses from this like center radiator fill thing over here. So there's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you're just gonna use some pliers and you're going to, you know, squeeze the clamps and just get out of the way so you can disconnect it from this guy. So after taking out the water inlet, taking it out was not as easy as the video made it seem. It was actually really difficult because of the tight spaces that you're in, pause, and the amount of hoses that you have to take out. It just doesn't want to work with you. So once you take out the inlet, your engine's gonna essentially look like this. All the hoses are gonna be in its spot. A bunch of coolant actually spilled when I actually took it out. So I'm gonna just wipe everything down after I install everything. You're gonna replace the O-ring on there, and then you're gonna replace the O-ring on there. The hard part isn't over yet, and we're gonna have to take out a couple of things before we can even take out the water pump. It is what it is. We're like knee deep in it already, and there's kind of no going back. What we're gonna do now is actually gonna replace the smaller O-ring in the engine. You can replace that now, but you actually can't replace the bigger O-ring until you install the new water pump. So in the box, it comes with a gasket, and this smaller O-ring is the one that you're going to be replacing, and that O-ring is gonna go on that tube right there. So, you know, fairly simple, just taking off the old O-ring and just putting a new one back on. So now that we have that out of the way, we're gonna go down here to this like driver piece thing. There's gonna be three 10mm bolts that you're gonna have to unbolt to move this. And then you should be able to move it out of the way. We're just gonna move it to the side. You don't have to worry about disconnecting anything. Once we move that to the side, we should have more clearance in order to remove the water pump. So we're almost there, but I went ahead and moved it over to the side. Now you have, I don't wanna say full clearance, but you are gonna have to remove 2 more pulleys in order to take out the water pump. But the 2 pulleys that you are going to have to remove is gonna be this one and this one. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to film because the angle of where, like, how the car is jacked up and all that stuff. I'll just update you guys when I have the pulleys off and explain it after. So after looking at the diagram, the bottom pulley, it's gonna be a left thread. Essentially what that means is you're gonna have to turn right to loosen it. And then for this pulley, it's gonna be exactly normal. So you're just gonna turn left counterclockwise in order to loosen this. So you're gonna have to loosen and take off these 2, and then we should be good to go to move on to the next step, which is hopefully taking off this damn water pump. Simple enough. I took off both pulleys. This one is the top pulley towards the top engine of the car. This one is more towards the bottom. But now you kind of have more clearance, and I believe the next step is to take off the water pump. I'm so over this already. I just want to get it over with. From what I remember and from the instructions, I think we're almost there, boys. I think we are almost there. So now here comes the fun part. We're actually gonna take off the water pump. There's about 16 bolts to take off the water pump. There's like a mixture of like large, medium size bolts. Make sure you know which one is which, because you don't want to get that confused. Once you remove the water pump though, there's gonna be a bunch of coolant that's gonna fall off. Now it's not gonna fall off, but it's just gonna drain out. So you wanna make sure that you have your drain pan or whatever, a bunch of rags, maybe even some cardboard boxes on the floor, so that in case anything falls, it's not gonna get on the floor. I'm gonna cover a bunch of the pulleys and all that stuff underneath so that when it does fall, I don't have to worry about cleaning up a bunch of stuff that I don't have to worry about cleaning. So wish me luck. I wish you guys luck as well if you guys are doing this yourselves. Let's go. Oh, finally. And the water pump is out. So this is what your old water pump is going to look like. I went ahead and just organized it. As I was taking out the bolts, I was like, all right, bet, let me go ahead and just organize it in the order that I got it out from. As you can see, they're like in different lengths in terms of where each bolt is supposed to go. And here is the new guy. I got this off of Amazon, so I'll leave the links of everything that I used for this install in the description so you guys can, you know, if you need to buy one, you can buy one yourself. This is gonna be the O-ring that we are gonna be replacing. And like I showed you guys earlier, the gasket comes with the O-ring. So you're gonna go ahead and just put that O-ring on there. And then once we put on the gasket, we could put the water pump back in. And that's pretty much the hard part. I do apologize that I couldn't get as best of an angle because my tripod only goes up a certain length and it won't really reach into what I'm trying to film. So I hope I explained that the best that I could. Another side note though, all these bolts are gonna be arranged from 10mm to 12mm to 14mm. You don't really have to memorize which one it is, but you just wanna make sure that you have both or all three, the 10, the 12, and the 14 handy. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but the old gasket is still on the car. It's gonna be this one, so you're gonna wanna remove this and make sure there's no like residue left over from behind so that when you put on the new gasket, it should be like super smooth and you shouldn't have any issues in terms of bolting everything back in. But this is the old one. It doesn't look like it's worn down or anything, and but we're gonna replace it anyway because we do have a new one. So I'm doing is I'm putting the new water pump back in the car right now. I put the gasket, I put everything back. But what you want to do is you want to just have one screw on one side and the other screw on the other side, just so you can hold it into place while you put on Loctite on the rest of the screws. You could just put like 1 or 2 drops on it and then you can go ahead and just tighten it down. I'll put on the screen the torque specs that you should do for each bolt, just so that whenever you guys do it, it's torqued down properly and you won't have any issues. Let me go ahead, put everything back. The O-ring is supposed to go right here, the new one. So you're gonna go ahead and just put that there and then everything should be smooth. So now that you got all of the bolts for the water pump torqued down to their specs, you can now install the pulleys. And each pulley is gonna have the same amount of torque specs, which I'll leave on the screen right here. So now that your pulleys are torqued down, they're all back together. You're gonna put this box back in its place. There's not gonna be any particular torque specs for this, so you can just go ahead and tighten it just so that it doesn't move. All right, boys and girls, we are almost there. After you put this back, you're gonna put the water inlet back. I have it specifically in this box, so remember where the 4 bolts you had are. And those 4 bolts are gonna be bolted down to 7 foot-pounds. It's not gonna be a lot, but you wanna make sure that you replace the O-ring that goes in there. That is a very important O-ring that you're going to have to replace. It's gonna be on the top portion of the new water pump. Go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, we're reaching the final stretch. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna go ahead and put the serpentine belt back in. I'll put the diagram on the screen so that you know which the correct way to put the belt back in. Once that's back in, then you can tighten the water pump pulley bolts, and then we can move on to the next step, which is pretty much putting everything back and filling the car with coolant. So now that the car is off jack stands and we got everything tightened up, we now should be able to fill the car with coolant. What I ended up doing was I bought a kit for specifically coolant, so that you can take all of the bubbles and all the air out of it. Now let's go ahead and fill up the car with some coolant.
That's all coolant.
The next day.
All right, y'all, so it's now the next day. We were able to push the car outside without turning on the car. The biggest thing is I didn't want to start the car, do the coolant refill when the car is inside. But I'm low-key kind of nervous. I was doing a lot of research today and I think we should be okay. Like, the smoking is normal when you have coolant in the engine bay because it's just evaporating. But just to be safe, I wanted to bring it outside so that, knock on wood, if anything does happen, it happens outside. We are going to start the car for the first time since yesterday. Wish us luck. Goodness gracious. Alright, I think I have some explaining to do. As you guys saw, I attempted to install a new water pump because there was a noise coming from mine, and I was like, you know what, I want to save myself the $600 or whatever it's gonna cost me to pay someone else to do something that I'm pretty sure that I can do. And as you guys saw in the last 2 clips, the things did not actually play out as I hoped. Car started to smoke, weird noises coming out of the engine. It was all bad. Past couple days, I've been really sad, really stressed, really mad, because I'm like, bro, this is my baby, dude. So there's 2 things that happened. 1, the smoke was absolutely insane coming out of the engine. And 2, there was loud screeching noise yelling in my ear coming from the engine bay. The smoke came from all of the coolant that's spilled in the car. And as I mentioned in the install is that make sure you have a bunch of rags to catch all the coolant that is going to spill once you take out the water pump. I specifically told that to you guys, but I didn't take my own advice and I didn't do that myself. So when I removed the water pump, all the coolant ended up just spilling everywhere. It didn't spill too much on the floor, but it kind of got on everywhere, like all the other pulleys, other pieces of the engine. I was like, okay, that's probably fine. I'll just wipe it off after I install the new one and we should be fine. So you fast forward, install everything, wipe everything down, clean everything, pour new coolant into the engine, started the car for the first time, and the car started smoking like a chimney, bro. So my first instinct was like, bro, we need to cut this. We need to cut this. We're inside the freaking garage. We're inside the house. Stop. Fast forward to the next day. pushed the car outside without starting the car. And that's where the second clip came in, where we started it and it started absolutely yelling in my ear. I was like, what are you doing? What is going on? Because I didn't hear the sound when we started it the day before. Why is it happening now? And this is where I'm like, all right, bro. Somebody can have it. Here's my key, you know, take it. I don't want any more. You can just tow it, whatever. So with the screaming sound, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna backtrack everything. I'm gonna uninstall a bunch of things and see if I can figure out what is going on. Come to find out, I'm a freaking idiot and I tightened one of the pulleys too damn tight to where it wasn't even moving anymore. And I was like, are you kidding me? So let me show you guys exactly what happened. So if you guys remember, you have to remove these two pulleys in order to access the water pump. After I uninstalled everything, I was trying to spin the pulleys. I was able to spin the top one, but the bottom one was just not having it. Like, it was not spinning. So I took it off and I noticed that it was just tightened too damn tight that even I couldn't even spin it. So if you're doing this install, after you reinstall the pulleys, make sure you can spin it yourself. If you can spin it yourself, the car shouldn't have any problems spinning it. Don't make it loose where it's like gonna fall off, but don't make it too tight where it's like it can't move. So please, just make sure you tighten it to 32 foot-pounds and you should be fine. So if you fast forward to today is Thursday. I started the install on Sunday. I had to go to work yesterday and it was about a 30-mile drive each way on the freeway. So I was in consistent highway speed for a good chunk of my drive, and the car stayed at operating temps the whole entire way, which means everything is fine. Everything worked itself out. I was a little upset, but at least it was an easy fix that I didn't have to take it to a mechanic or do anything to the car. It was just my freaking idiot self tried to be too cautious and over tighten things and stressing over nothing, because it's what I do. So now the car is as quiet as a freaking rabbit. When I started, there's no noise that you guys heard before. Everything is back to normal. So in all honesty, I'm happy. I'm chilling. I'm like, all right, when's the next shoot? When's the next meet? What part am I gonna order next, type of thing. Let me start the car so you guys can hear how healthy it sounds. It sounds better than it ever did before, if I'm being honest. Missed that cold start. I know I missed that cold start. So as you can tell just by the noise, you can hear the little ticking sound, which is normal for these IS engines, whether it's the IS250 or the IS350. That little ticking sound is normal, but you don't hear that sloshing sound anymore, which is a good sign. And I think replacing the water pump actually fixed that noise. So that's pretty much gonna do it for today's video. I started off really good, then it really went downhill. Went up just a little bit because I fixed everything, and now I think we're back up to normal. We do have a lot of things planned, so if you guys aren't already, definitely subscribe to the channel down below. And if you guys kind of enjoyed the roller coaster ride we had this whole week, definitely give this video a big thumbs up. And until next video, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!